And you're live.
Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. And let's make sure you can see me okay. Okay, hey guys, I'm just going to try to get my camera to pop up here. For some reason, it decided to go all kaflooey all of a sudden. See if we can get this working. Not you guys for me to have the camera on tonight. Let me see if I can get this popped up for y'all. And if not, we'll just move ahead without it. Not a big deal. All right. How's that? JP, can you see me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome. Tonight's presentation is going to focus on how to get over any fears or hang-ups you might be having about starting to do webinars. We've got a lot of people who have come out tonight. Appreciate everybody. Priscilla, Ashlyn, Thomas, Florence, Chris. These are just names I see in the chat right in front of me here. A lot of folks that came out tonight. And as most of you guys know, my specialty is webinar marketing. We are currently in the middle of making available a course on webinar marketing that I will be doing starting week of January 5th. It is very focused on teaching new marketers how to promote webinars, how to position webinars, how to sponsor a lot of people with webinars, how to generate leads, and how to close a lot of sales with webinars. I typically generate between around $2,000 or $3,000 up to around $10,000 per webinar. And hey, everybody, I can see a lot more names popping up here. And Brian Finale and I, the CEO of MOSP, were talking, and we realized that there's probably a lot of you that are interested in webinar marketing, but maybe a little fearful about how to get started, maybe wondering, can I do this? Is this the right thing for me? I'm not a guru, I don't have a lot of results, or I've never done this before, or I'm afraid. Or you may be feeling like, I get, in theory, I see the big picture about how webinars on paper can be really effective in my business. I'm just not sure personally I'm comfortable starting to do that. Some of you are in that position. And what I'd like to do is, JP, is there an easy way for folks to kind of raise their hand? Is that easy for people to do? Let's do this. I'm just looking at the interface here. JP, if you are on, is there a simple way that people can raise their hand? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to add a question. Here's my question, and respond to the poll if you're feeling like you understand that webinars can add a lot of value for your business, but maybe you're feeling a little fearful about doing them yourself, or you've got hesitations, or you're feeling some discomfort about doing webinars yourself. I want to get a feel for where you all are at. So I'm going to ask a question with a poll right now. So in a moment, a poll is going to pop up. And here's the question. Are you someone who sees value in doing webinars, but is maybe a little thinking about doing them yourselves? That's the question. Are you someone, and you'll see it in a moment, who sees value in doing webinars, but is maybe a little uncomfortable about starting to do them yourself? Okay, we'll get that poll up in just a moment. And just respond to where you're at kind of in your business. If you feel like, yeah, I get it. Maybe you've seen some of my trainings in the past week or so. Maybe you have seen people out there doing webinars, and on some level you can see like, wow, well, clearly if I did this, probably make some money, probably sponsor more people, I'd probably get greater results, it'd probably increase my brand, but you're feeling like just something inside, you're just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. So please go ahead and fill out that poll if you have not done so already. Okay, so an overwhelming number of you is in the boat of saying, hey, I get the value here, but I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to stop the poll because it's clear as day that that's where nearly all of you are at, which is to be expected on a webinar like this. Okay, I'm going to pull that poll down. Go back to the chat. Okay, very good. Now I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll get into the training here. And I may come back to this poll in a moment. All right, So what I want to know is, have you seen, I want to know if you've seen any of my previous webinars in the last week about webinar marketing. Have you seen any of my webinars about webinar marketing in the last week, but have not yet made the investment into Webinar Sales Magic? Webinar Sales Magic is the name of the webinar marketing intensive, 6-week intensive. When you make that investment, you will be part of a fairly large group of MOSP members and others that I will be training on webinar marketing end-to-end, everything you need to know, even if you're totally afraid, never done this before, starting the first week of January. Have you seen any of my webinars about webinar marketing in the last week, but have not yet made the investment into Webinar Sales Magic? Or let me rephrase that. And want to make the investment, into Webinar Sales Magic, but are a little afraid to start doing webinars. So the first question was basically, do you see the value in doing webinars, but you're a little afraid? And most of you said yes. The second question is more specific, is have you seen one of my webinar trainings in the last week, are interested in Webinar Sales Magic, this webinar marketing intensive that I'm starting first week of January, and you're interested and you'd like to come on board, or you're leaning in that direction, you're open to that maybe, but you're kind of afraid of doing webinars, and that's kind of kept you from actually making the investment. If that's you, then say yes. Again, more specific question. You kind of have seen me do some training, realize that there is an opportunity to go further with me starting the first week of January, and you think there's value in the course, but you're just kind of like, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that. Okay, it's different from saying, I understand generally webinars can be powerful, but I've never seen you do a training on it, I have no idea anything about this course. That's a different story. I'm talking about, have you kind of seen me do a training the past week, understand we're doing this intensive, it looks cool to you, it looks valuable, but you've held back so far because you're feeling like, I'm kind of feeling a little uncomfortable, I'm not sure I'm going to get comfortable doing webinars. If that's you, okay. We have a lot of you in that boat as well. The vast majority of people who are chiming in are in that exact boat. You want to get started with Webinar Sales Magic, and you get it. You're like, webinars look cool. I've seen your training, man. You're crushing it with webinars. On some level, I'd love to do that, but I'm feeling a little stuck and hung up about whether it's right for me or whether I can really do this. If that's you, definitely. Please answer the poll if you haven't done so. Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to stop the poll. Let's get into this. I'm going to talk a little bit and then throw up my slides here and get into that. We'll be here about another hour and 45 minutes or so, maybe 2 hours. This training is going to be very different from other trainings that I've done. We're going to start off Some of the slides that you'll see will look similar to slides that you've seen before about webinar marketing that I've done, but the focus is going to veer very radically in a different direction about halfway through this presentation. So those of you that have been on here for some of my other trainings in the past week, if you're seeing slides that look familiar to what I've been using in the last week, have no fear. That's very intentional. There's quite a few of you who haven't been on some of the trainings that I've done. And what's going to happen is about halfway through the presentation, I have some new training that I'm going to be getting into in this presentation, where I'm really going to give you some actionable tactics that you can use. I'm going to hide the chat for the moment. Thanks for everybody chiming in. I bring up the chat again at some point so that I can get some feedback from you. But I want you to stay really focused on the message I'm delivering to you. So I'm going to get into actionable tactics, because guys, I've been there myself. I mean, just to give a little backstory, and then I'll go through my background a little more formally in a moment. But I've been a member of MLSP since January of 2009. That's a long time. That's almost 6 years. And I had a sense fairly early on that the people making the most money in the industry were the people doing the presentations. So I would get on these MLSP webinars, and I would see leaders selling a product or a course, and I'd see them go through the and I'd see them do the close, if you will. They're showing, what's in the course and this, that, and the other thing, and I could tell there was like a formula to that. I just knew there was enough similarity, and you guys know what I mean. There was enough similarity in these sales webinars that I was seeing that I knew there was some sort of formula to how to sell, and I was like, God, if I just knew that formula, man, I think that would be very, very powerful. And I kind of always had that in my mind, but I was also like kind of totally out of it when it came to really taking seriously doing webinars myself. Okay, I got started doing webinars about 2.5 years ago or so, but I was in the industry for a few years prior to that. And I just never really took seriously doing webinars. And in hindsight, I would have made so much more money if I understood what I'm going to teach you tonight. And I just kind of got over it. Okay, a lot of some things in our life are like these kinds of things that we think are big issues, and they actually turn out to be much smaller issues. It's like we make them big in our head, but in reality, it's kind of like doing that task at work that you don't want to do, and then you finally do it, and you're like, that really wasn't that hard, There's that task you've been avoiding, like cleaning out the garage, and you literally avoid it for like 6 months. And then when you finally do it, it takes you like an hour and a half, and you're like, well, that wasn't very hard. But you spent like 6 months in your head like avoiding it, and probably spent more than 90 minutes total like thinking about how you just don't want to do it, right? So like that the mental energy of avoiding it is actually bigger than the task itself. It's kind of what goes on with webinars. And what I'm going to get into is how there's a lot of things that you can do that will make it very, very easy for you to get through kind of this fear that you have. And I'll get into that about halfway into the training. But for starters, I want to lay the groundwork about why webinars matter, why they're effective, and you can almost never get exposed to this enough because it's such a powerful strategy. It's really critical that you really get this. So let's get right into this. And we'll be here about another hour and 45 or so. This presentation is very, very unique. There's no one in the industry that teaches this. I mean, there's almost no training on webinar marketing at all in this industry. And the little training that's out there is, here's how to close on webinars. But getting people to register and attend is 80% of the game, and nobody teaches that except for me. I just haven't seen anybody teaching any of that. But then beyond that, getting over kind of the mental hurdles and getting yourself emotionally ready to start to do webinars, I don't even think people are thinking about teaching this. So this is a very, very innovative training. Shut off your phone, shut off Twitter, get off Skype, close out your other internet browsers, your other tabs, stay with us. This is really the training that most of you need to move ahead with webinars in your business. This will be life-changing for a lot of you. It really will be. So let's get right into it. I'm going to pull up my slides, we'll go into screen share, and we'll be off to the races here. Okay, let's get right into this. The Fearless Webinar Newbie. How to get over newbie webinar paralysis quickly, start doing webinars, make money, and sponsor reps, even if you've never done a webinar before. Now, my training style is very direct and very to the point. If I share something on my training tonight that differs from what you've heard elsewhere, do not throw out the entire webinar training because of a couple things that differ from what you've heard elsewhere. You will understand in a moment here when I talk about my results why it is that I am the guy who does the webinar trainings in the industry. It would be very cool to really step up and be able to do webinars confidently. It would be very cool to know that this is just as simple as sending an email. Okay, my energy around this is there's no, for me, doing webinars it's literally like sending an email. There's no like emotional stuff around it. I don't have emotional baggage around it. I'll talk to you how I got there and how you can get there. And this is not difficult. It's a lot simpler than you realize, particularly when you go through the training in Webinar Sales Magic, because I'm so step-by-step about it. Like, we spend an entire training on how to title your webinars. I mean, that is significant. Oh, looks like I got a pop-up here. Let me just address this. Sorry about that. And that's where you'll get. Now, if some of these slides look familiar to what you've seen before, some of the initial stuff is going to be review, and I will get into, I'll make a hard right turn about halfway into this webinar where I'll really get into some new content. Keep a very open mind. Mind works best when it's like a parachute. It's got to be open. Sounds like a cliche, but it is true. Let's get right into this. Grab a pad, grab a pen, take notes, commit to being with us straight through to the end. This is a very, very, very unique opportunity. No one really teaches this in the industry. Do any of these relate to you? You see leaders doing webinars but feel a little unsure whether or how to do them yourself. I think that describes nearly all of you on this webinar. That's why you're here. You see us doing webinars, you're just not sure how to do them, whether to do them. It's just, can you do them? You want residual income, you want to make money, you don't have the 5 to 7 years required to build a large downline to make it happen. Maybe that's you. If you had a cost-effective way to earn an extra $3,000 to $8,000 a month in your business that was legitimate, it would radically change your business. Maybe you've been in learning mode for years and you want to boost your income dramatically. You're ready to build a real business like a top earner if you have a proven strategy that just plain works. Here's my promise to you all tonight. I, Steve Jaffe, promise to share with you the exact webinar strategy that has allowed me to sponsor 16 to 28 reps per month, generate upwards of $10,000 in 90 minutes, become a top producer in 2 programs, and build a multiple 6-figure income, and how you can eradicate any fear or hang-ups about doing webinars so you can achieve these same results. You're going to understand all of that tonight. I promise by the end of this webinar to allow you to be able to implement the exact strategy yourself within 96 hours of this webinar. I promise to show you how this strategy will allow you to sponsor all the people you could ever need to become a top producer in any direct sales, multi-level, top-tier, or affiliate program. And finally, I promise you more fun out of life and the ability to provide yourself and your family with everything you want out of life for you and them, and the peace of mind that comes with it. Is that a bold promise? Yes, and I will keep it. I absolutely will keep this promise to you tonight. Stay with us. I am here not because I do a lot of webinars. I am here training you because the results I get on my webinars are better than nearly everybody else in the industry. For a given amount of traffic, in terms of the number of people I'm able to get to register and attend, and the percentage of people I'm able to get to buy on webinars. And my students are getting metrics, they're getting results in terms of percentage that buy and percentage that attend, these kinds of metrics that match my own metrics. It would be very cool to get trained so that you have world-class results from your webinars. The first webinar you ever do, not only are you confident, but you close sales. Close 2 sales, make $600. Close 3 sales, make $900. You're making $300 from every sale. These are the kinds of results my students get. It'd be very cool to get those kind of results right away, wouldn't it? A little bit about my background, then we'll get into the training. The training will start out to be about webinar marketing, sort of from a high level. It's very important that you understand some of the fundamentals about why webinars are effective. And then I'm going to make a hard right turn and talk about how to get over apprehensions and fears about doing webinars. This is me and my girlfriend Jamie. We live here in Austin, Texas. Here we are at a local football game. Here I am on the cover of a magazine for a series of webinar marketing trainings I did. The first training was a $3,000 hour webinar formula. At this point, my current record is over $10,000 from a webinar. Had my girlfriend Jamie be on one of the covers with me. We had a lot of fun with this photo shoot. You can generate leads from doing webinars. I'm the only person in the history of this fairly prestigious industry magazine to appear on 4 successive issue covers. And that was because there was such great response to my trainings that I was doing every month. And I share that with you, not to toot my own horn, but to tell you this is really what's possible when you start to do webinars. Your profile will grow dramatically no matter what niche you are in, whether you're in home business or small business or whatever industry that you are in. I speak on the topic of webinar marketing around the industry. Here I am training at the Live the Dream event, the MLSP annual live event. This is a photo from last year's event in San Diego. I was a featured speaker again at our past event about 2 months ago here in Austin, Texas. Did my undergrad at Stanford University, got my MBA from MIT's Sloan School of Management. Typically generate between about 25 and 200 leads per day, depending on how much I'm advertising my webinars. Lead generation becomes very, very straightforward and simple and as a byproduct of promoting webinars. I go through this in depth in the course. In Webinar Sales Magic, you will actually get trained by the #1 Facebook advertising expert in the industry, Kurt Malley. He manages MLSP's Facebook advertising account. He manages the Facebook advertising accounts for many heavy hitters in the industry and many marketing systems and opportunities and companies that you'd be very familiar with. So if you don't have a list or you don't have leads, that will absolutely be a non-issue for you because you'll generate a lot of leads when you promote webinars using the strategies that you'll learn in Webinar Sales Magic. It'd be very cool to easily generate 50 leads per day simply by promoting webinars. I mean, that would be very cool, wouldn't it? Here's an example, results from a webinar. This is a fairly old slide. I really should update this because it's my current record, as I mentioned, is over $10,000 from a single webinar. And actually more recently, we did multiple 5 figures on last Wednesday. So the webinar I did last Wednesday, we had multiple 5 figures of sales come in. So it's actually well beyond $10,000. We're talking about multiple 5-figure webinars at this point. Typically, I sell at the $297 and $497 price points. These are great price points for webinars. I'll talk about why a little bit later. You're not limited to just sell $10 offers or $30 offers. What's cool, guys, is it doesn't take any more energy or effort to sell a $500 offer on a webinar as it does to sell a $50 offer. You'll make a lot more money. And when you implement the tactics that I will teach you to kind of get over any fears and hangups that you have, you can do this too. When you couple it with getting trained properly, when you couple it with the step-by-step training, I hand everyone my templates, who's a member of the course student in Webinar Sales Magic, that course starting first week in January. Be very cool to have my templates, wouldn't it? Have my PowerPoint slides, have my emails. That would go a long way to alleviating the creative burden at your end, wouldn't it? One of the top producers in My Lead System Pro, again, I've been a member since January 2009, which is like a million years in internet time. I pop around on this leaderboard. Sometimes I'll disappear from the leaderboard temporarily if I'm promoting one of my own offers hardcore for the time being. Member of the month, June 2013, great honor out of 100,000 affiliates. There's only 12 members of the month per year, so to be selected is a very, very prestigious honor in our community. One of the all-time top producers for an affiliate program for leads. If you look on this list, this is like a who's who list of internet marketers: Jay Kubasek, Jonathan Budd, Brian Finale. One of the instructors for BetterNetworker.com, a social media website that trains home business owners alongside other great leaders here, like Michelle Pescasolito, Ray Higdon, Diane Hockman, Brian Finale, etc. Here's the kind of feedback that I get on my webinars that you can also get when you dial in strategies that you'll learn when you make the investment to get trained by me on webinar marketing. Best training I've ever had, in the industry for 7 years. God bless you. One of the very best presentations I've heard in the 14 years I've been in this profession. That was awesome. My mind's now officially blown. What a presentation. My fingers are falling off from all the notes I was typing. Absolutely stunning presentation, Steve. It would do wonders for your confidence to get great feedback from your webinars, wouldn't it? And when you do webinars using the training that I provide you with, you'll get great feedback from people. You will. They will literally email you and Facebook message you, thank you so much for that training. They really will. Because the way that webinars are done is you have a core training and then you move into an offer where you say, if you want to go deeper into this, here's an offer where you can learn more. But people get so much value out of the training, they'll really regard you as someone who's there to help them. That would go a long way to really get you feeling like, hey, wow, this is not really that hard to do. This is kind of fun, wouldn't it? It would be very cool. It'd be very cool if you were getting these kind of messages. Gotten great feedback from Brian Finale, CEO of MLSP. Jackie is legit, everyone. He will do a great service to get on here and learn some of his tricks. The dude is killing it on webinars. Steve Jaffe, my hero. Steve Jaffe is just a phenom when it comes to automating webinars. My business is growing very, very rapidly, guys, and I ask for you to understand that I've got a lot going on. I've got a lot of customers coming on board, tons of customers coming on board into Webinar Sales Magic. Very, very fast-growing business. In exchange for taking time out of my calendar to train you on this very innovative topic, I ask for you to stay totally focused. Stay with us the entirety of the presentation. Get off Twitter, get off Skype, get off Facebook. Close your door. Shut off your phone. Shut off any browser windows outside of this one tab. See, guys, how you treat this webinar is really reflective of how you're treating your business. If you're focused and attentive through the duration of this training tonight, which I believe is as far as I can see, the only training in the industry on how to get over your fear of doing webinars. How you regard this training is indicative. Or if you're focused, if you're here with us straight through the end, if you're an action taker, you stand a very good chance of taking your business to the next level by implementing what you learn here. If you are kind of dogging it, or you don't have the will and follow through and commitment to even be on this webinar, what does that say about your integrity? What does that say about your will? I mean, really just start to get real about that, guys. Okay, occasionally I'm a little bit kind of tough love in my training, but sometimes this is what people need to hear. Like, understand that if you're just kind of like mailing it in your, when you're on a webinar like this, that's what you're doing in your business. If you're here and focused, and you're here straight through the end, that's putting points up on the board. See, we're about to turn the page into 2015, and what you do right now is going to have a huge impact on your entire year next year. Make no mistake. If you're focused now, that's building momentum for 2015. This night right now matters a lot. We're about to head into the holidays next week. Right? It's going to be all about holidays. Where your head is right now tonight has a huge impact on your ability to generate momentum for 2015. So stay with us. Stay focused. Get off Facebook. Get off Twitter. Get off Skype. Be with us. Now, I was not always as successful as I currently am in the industry. I was working very long hours in corporate America for GE, General Electric, out of business school. I had my MBA, was living in Midtown Manhattan. I had an hour-and-a-half commute each way. I would get home. I would leave my apartment at 7:15 in the morning, and I get home at 8 o'clock on a good night. It was often 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And I just had no life. And I looked for a way out. I went to a meeting. I got introduced to a network marketing opportunity, and I was like, shoot, all I need to do is get a bunch of circles below me, and I'm on my way, right? And I got started, sponsored about half a dozen people I met out and about, half a dozen people I knew, and I could not get my check to grow beyond about $200 a month, and it was very frustrating. And I realized that I needed to make a change. I needed to get trained and make some changes, and I discovered MLSP, and I started generating leads. bear with me, guys. I'm copying a bunch of files onto this hard. This is a new computer, and in typical style, Windows is popping some stuff up. So I got invested into getting trained, and that made all the difference. When I joined MOSP, literally the first week I was a full member of MOSP, I bought into an intensive called the 90-Day Challenge, and that made all the difference. This is a skills game. So the first thing I focused on was lead generation. And honestly, in hindsight, we make a lot about, we have a heavy focus on lead generation in this community. We have a heavy focus on lead generation in this community. And I think that we don't emphasize enough the importance of actually selling stuff and closing sales. And that's why we made a decision to make Webinar Sales Magic available to you, because the highest converting sales medium in the industry is webinars. And I'll talk about that in a moment and why that's the case. And the solution for me really forward out of the woods was to start out getting some training on how to generate leads. But I wasn't really making like good money. I was popping up on leaderboards for leads, but I was barely like making ends meet. And when I started doing webinars and really got into it, I went from effectively ground zero to having my first $30,000 month in 6 months, doing nothing but webinars. That's how powerful webinar marketing can be. It doesn't take any more time, effort, and energy to make $10,000 on a webinar as it does to make $300. I'm telling you, I've done both. It's just a question of scale. And when you understand the fundamentals that I teach you in the course, you're going to know literally how to match the results of other students in the course. And the typical results are you do your first selling webinar and you're closing sales right away. You're closing sales right away. First time out, 2 or 3 sales, $600 or $900. That is typical. And scaling from that to making $2,000 or $3,000 on a webinar, or sponsoring, going from sponsoring 2 or 3 people on a webinar your first time out to sponsoring 5 or 10 on a webinar, scaling to that is very, very simple. I go through all of that in the course. You don't need any prior experience or anything. Very, very straightforward. It would be very cool to understand how to change your life with webinars in a way that felt comfortable and easy to do and straightforward. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? Here's what this all means. There's really a silver lining to everything that you've been going through. That was my quick story. You've got your own story. If you've been confused about what direction to go in, you're just trying to figure out what's the right fit for you in terms of business strategy. Understand that being a small business owner, entrepreneur, home business owner, this is a noble path. Not everybody has what it takes to do what you are doing. And it's not because other people are bad people or less than. Everybody's got a different path. And understand that your path is probably about working for yourself, time freedom, providing for yourself and your family, making more money, being financially free, these kinds of things. Not everybody has this mindset. And understand that absolutely creating freedom for yourself and your family is a noble path. And it's okay. I mean, if you haven't been a success in your business, it's not your fault. You just haven't gotten trained with a methodology and a strategy that's going to be the best fit for you. If you feel like you've been wasting time with no results, you're just someone who's willing to sacrifice for your family and your future, and that's okay. It's time to remove the burden from your shoulders and whatever guilt you've been carrying around. It's really time to move beyond that. Sometimes we get stuck in our own head about things, and we don't need to be. There's some practical things you can do. I'll get into some of those practical things shortly in the training. If you've been suffering from information overload, you're getting hit with a lot of invitations for stuff and content, and feel like there's something new to kind of focus on every 5 minutes in your business, you're a sponge. You want to soak up the knowledge to have the right information when the right opportunity comes along. Guys, knowledge is almost never a disadvantage. Getting trained is the secret to moving ahead in this industry. Getting trained properly and being in a training environment where you're getting supported and you're taking action. This is a skills game, guys. Have you been embarrassed about what your family's thinking of you? Oh, you're still doing that thing? Evelyn, she's still doing that thing. Right? I got that from relatives. Understand, guys, people may not know what's best for you. You might know what's best. You're willing to take the risk to provide for your family when you know what's best, but they may not know what's best. Understand when people point the finger at you, they're really realizing in themselves that they may not be in a position where they have the will, fortitude, follow through, and courage that you have to go out on their own and start their own business. And again, it's not because they're bad people. Everybody's on a different path. Everybody's got a different, it's really, there's an expression, never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. And when people point their finger at you, oftentimes that's really an attempt to kind of temporarily lower your self-esteem, so it sort of, relatively speaking, raises up their own feelings of self-esteem. And that's their issue. It has nothing to do with you. They're not trying, they don't realize they're doing it. They're not trying to be mean. They're just on a different path. And do not let somebody else's stuff impact you. Don't let somebody else's hang-ups about their own, where they're at, impact you. You've got to really take seriously the reality that making it in this industry really happens between the ears. And I know you've heard that before, but it really does. The actual tactics themselves are pretty straightforward. Doing webinars is kind of mechanical. And I mean that in a good way. Like, there is a formula to title your webinar that you will learn in Webinar Sales Magic that will get you a lot more attention than other webinars that are titled in ways that are very boring. There's a formula to how to configure the registration page that will get you a phenomenal percentage of people who visit the registration page actually register for your webinar. I teach you that formula and I give you the template for your webinar registration page. There's a formula of what to do, what kind of emails to send, and when to send them to maximize the number of people from your list that register. There's a formula to advertise on Facebook. It's all formulaic, guys. It's paint by numbers, step-by-step kind of stuff. There's a formula to what to say on your webinars. There's literally a 25-point presentation blueprint that I teach you, and more than that, I hand you my PowerPoint slides. Right? When third graders come home and they've got paint by numbers or fill in the blanks, that's essentially what webinar marketing is when you go through the course. I give you the templates. I walk through with you very, very clearly what the strategies are, why they work, and how to do them. So you go through the course. You'll be totally clear on how to do webinars very, very effectively that get you great results. So the game really does boil down to just between the ears. The how is a given. I know how to do this very, very effectively, and how to teach new marketers how to do this. And I've got a lot of great feedback from my students that get great results like the first time out and then thereafter. So it really does come down to your heart, your will, and what's going on between the ears. And we'll get into this a little bit later in this training. Let's talk about why webinars are so effective, and then I'm going to, again, make that sharp right turn and really get into how do you get over hang-up fears that you might have. But again, many of you have never been exposed to any of the webinar training that I provided, so that's why I'm going through what, for some of you, is kind of a review. But again, you can never really get exposed to this stuff enough. Webinars have the highest sales conversion rate of any sales medium in the industry. Webinars will convert into sales and signups better than sales letters, better than sales videos, and similar to selling from the stage. A sales video is just that. You click a link in an email usually, and there's a video that pops up with somebody trying to sell you something. Sales letters, they're usually very long. You have to scroll down the screen many times. You will get much higher conversion ratios from lead to sale or from visitor to sale. And by sale, that could be a sale of really anything. You can sell anything on webinars. You can sell a business opportunity, a network marketing opportunity. You could sell a product. You could sell a training course. You could sell a marketing system. You could sell a high-ticket course. You could sell coaching. You could sell physical products. You can achieve similar closing ratios to selling from the stage. Selling from the stage is you go to a hotel meeting, there's usually an industry leader at the front of the room on stage doing a training, and at the end, they have something for sale, and they make it available, and they say, guys, I've only got 20 units or 20 copies, or I can only take 20 of you into this course, and people are literally running to the back of the room to buy. This you can emulate with a webinar, and this is a very big deal. It would be very cool to basically have people clamoring to pull out a credit card at the end of your webinars, just because you use like a cookie cutter formula. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? I mean, really think about that. It'd be very cool to know that when you sit down to do a webinar on like a Thursday night, that like 90 minutes later you'll have like $1,000 in your account from commissions that you didn't have 90 minutes earlier. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? Or you'd have 4 new or 5 new people that you sponsored just that night in 90 minutes. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? Here's why webinars are so effective in influencing people and closing sales. A webinar is a scheduled event. It's not interruption marketing. Interruption marketing is you're on Facebook, you're staring at your news feed, and there's an ad on the right side and you click it. You did not get on Facebook to click ads. You got on there to look at your news feed. Interruption marketing, so therefore it's an interruption to what you were there to do. Interruption marketing is you check your email and you click a link and suddenly there's a sales video that pops up. You did not go to your inbox in order to watch sales videos. You went to your inbox to check your email. Those are interruptions to what you were there to do. In contrast, a webinar is a scheduled event. A scheduled event, by definition, gets heightened attention and is considered more important. The very act of putting some stuff on your calendar and keeping some stuff not on your calendar differentiates what you consider most important from what you consider less important. You probably don't have on your calendar something like drink a glass of water at 9:41 in the morning. That's probably not a recurring appointment on your calendar because drinking a glass of water is not something that rises to the level of importance that's worth scheduling. It's something that you just do. In contrast, if you think of the last wedding you attended, you knew exactly when that wedding ceremony was starting. If it started at 6 p.m., you were seated by 5:45. You weren't strolling in at 7 o'clock. You weren't rushing to get there at 6:45. You were seated before the ceremony started. The last airplane flight you took, you knew exactly when it was taking off down to the minute. You were seated on the airplane in time for that, to make that appointment, weren't you? I mean, you plan that whole day around getting the airport on time, don't you? Things that are scheduled, that are on our calendar, we regard with heightened attention. We consider them more important. This is so critical to understand about why webinars sell so effectively. Because what happens on a webinar is you promote it, people are excited to get onto it, and when they get on the webinar, you can engage them and sustain their attention through the entirety of the presentation. So they have this feeling like your information is the only thing that matters. They're off their phone, they've gotten off Twitter, they've gotten off Skype, they've gotten off Facebook. They're totally dialed in and focused on your content. It's kind of like a Las Vegas casino where there's no clocks on the walls and people are only focused on gambling. It's intentional that there's no clocks on the wall. This is heightened attention. They've got to be in the room, metaphorically speaking, in the webinar room, because there's a happening, there's an event happening, and it's only happening that time. Now this is marketing to effectively a captive audience. And a well-crafted webinar is a process where you steward the attendees through an experience where they are impelled into an emotional state where they're open and ready to buy. And you'll understand a lot more about what I mean by that in the Webinar Sales Magic course. But basically, you are influencing these people. What you say, how you structure the presentation. There's a process to how to do that so that by the time people have been on the webinar with you for an hour to an hour and a half, or 2 hours in some cases, but it's generally between 60 minutes and 120 minutes is a typical webinar, a very high percentage of these people are open and interested to buy, or to take the action step that you want them to take. And it is in their best interest because you're making available to them offers, products, and services that you feel really good about that are really high value. Webinars are a process of orchestrated influence. Selling is a process of influence, and it is the only revenue-generating activity in the world of business. Nothing happens unless something gets bought or sold. It'd be very cool to understand how to structure a webinar so that without even really thinking about it too much, by just going through a formula, you've got an attentive audience and a lot of these people step up and take action. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? If you just had that confidence. You just sit down confidently knowing, all right, we're doing this, doing the webinar, no problem. You just go and do it, have fun with it. I have fun with my webinars. I like doing live webinars. I like doing one live webinar a week. I get into it. And you will too when you start to get trained properly and you get results. With a webinar, you have an entire presentation. You get to educate prospects on everything they need to make an informed decision. Understand that a well-structured webinar presentation, guys, you'll have between 70% and 90% of your audience stay with you through the entire presentation and see your offer. That's huge. Because with a sales video, when you track the percentage of people who started watching the sales video, like in contrast to a webinar, if you just send them an email with a link to a sales video, for every 100 people you get to start watching that video, you'll have only about 10 people who stay at the end of the sales video. Because it's interruption marketing. Their attention is not nearly as focused. So a sales video will get you about 10% retention through the duration of the sales video. A webinar will get you 70 to 90% retention. That's an astronomical difference. Astronomical difference. And they must stay on till the end to see the offer in order to take action and make the investment, of course. Sales letter, same thing. You only get about 10% of the people who start reading a sales letter actually finish it. A webinar, 70% to 90% of the people will stay on straight through the end. That is very, very significant. Heightened attention, your content's the only thing that matters, etc. People will perceive you as an authority. When you start to do webinars, what will happen is they will see you as an authority. They'll regard you as somebody who's farther down the learning curve than them because you're doing the presentation. Now, one of the tricks that I'm going to get into, maybe I'll just share with you now, a really powerful way to eliminate a lot of the inhibitions and fears that you have about doing webinars is to use content that you're learning elsewhere. The actual training component of your webinars, guys, does not need to be original. It's totally okay to go and watch a training webinar on MLSP and summarize what you've learned into a webinar of your own. Now, I'm not sure I would go and, for you to start going and doing trainings on webinar marketing particularly, unless you, get started, get trained, or doing them yourself. But for anything else that, like, you're just learning, like, guys, you can just simply summarize. In other words, what I mean is, if you learn, like, an Instagram strategy, and you go and do it, and you generate a few leads, you're now qualified to do a webinar and teach that. Right? Just understand that you don't have to be some huge guru to start doing webinars. Because here's the thing. Once you do the training yourself, people will regard you as the authority. And once you get trained on doing webinars yourself, you do your first webinar, you get results, you can literally turn around and be like, here's how I did my first webinar. You can do a whole training if you wanted to on, guys, here's how I did my first one. I'd never done a webinar before. I had 2 sales. Here's how I did it, right? Like, once you kind of do the thing, you just kind of summarize what you did, right? And I get into this in much greater detail in the course and talk to you about how to structure the training. I mean, it's very specific. But understand what's going to happen is the side benefit of when you do webinars, people just regard you as the authority. They just will. Even if they don't even register and attend your webinar, they'll see you promoting it, and their image of you will change. And what this does is it has ripple effects, and it increases sales of everything else that you're selling. It's amazing. What I experienced is, as soon as I started selling training courses on webinars, I got more MLSP signups, and I wasn't even selling MLSP on the webinar. It's because people saw me as the authority. Now let's get into how to get over fear of doing webinars. I'm going to go through each of these. The first strategy that I recommend is to get trained on webinar marketing. Invest in webinar sales magic and get trained by me step by step how to do webinars. And here's why. Because knowledge is power. A lot of times where fear comes from is it's really tied to our own inhibitions, our own story. Maybe some of you have a background where maybe you've never been comfortable presenting. Maybe you've never been comfortable speaking, public speaking, this kind of a thing. It turns out that webinars are a lot easier than public speaking. They really are. I mean, you're not in a room with a million people. You're literally just sitting at home in front of your computer. But a lot of times what happens is we make assumptions about how something is going to be without really experiencing it. So we just presume that webinars are going to be this challenging, hard thing, when in reality, what I see time and again is when people simply make the investment and go through the 6-week training. I've done a 6-week live webinar training, a live intensive, on 2 occasions previously. This is the first time I've ever offered it to the MLSP community, maybe the only time I ever offer it live ever again. But I've done it twice before to my list. And what I've seen over and over again is the students, they come on board and they all have basically the same experience. They're completely blown away by the quality of the training. I get tons of great feedback. They're like, holy smokes, I knew this was going to be a good course, but I had no idea it'd be this good. It's that kind of a thing. They get really excited because their inhibitions and fears start to melt away just by getting trained. The simple act of getting trained properly turns mysterious and fearful things into things that are simple. When you're a little kid and you look at riding a bike, or you look at driving, like learning to drive, it's kind of like, I don't know how to do that. I want to do that, but I don't know how to do that. And then you go through driver's ed, and you're like, okay, I understand the rules of the road. And for those of you that remember, the first time you ever drove, maybe it was with one of your parents. In my case, it was with my dad. Kind of a typical story. A man and his son, he's teaching his son how to drive. And I was kind of freaked out at first. It was a stick shift, and I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. Well, I got to tell you, it didn't take very long before that was easy to do, because my dad showed me how to do it. And what really helped was that he was right there by my side, and that brings us to the second tactic. If you're feeling stuck or having inhibitions, put yourself in an environment where you're around a lot of other people getting trained, a lot of other new marketers. There's nothing more alleviating than being able to reach out to somebody who's in a similar position and just connect with them. And what's going to happen in this coaching environment, guys, is the way it's set up is we're going to start the first week of January, and there's going to be a community group that is private for customers only that you'll be able to reach out to 24/7. Whatever questions you have, if you're just like unclear on something that you're working on in your webinar funnel, you can reach out. You'll get feedback from people in the course, and I'll be popping in there as well to be responsive. And so you're not going to be alone. You're not going to be isolated. There's always going to be people to reach out to lend a helping hand. And there's nothing more powerful than learning in a group environment. There really is nothing more powerful than that. So when you get trained properly, mysteries become things that are very, very clear to you. And when you're around other people who are doing the exact same thing, what's going to happen is you can reach out to them and be like, hey guys, I'm feeling, even it could be as simple as I'm feeling a little stuck in how to title my webinar, or I'm just feeling a little afraid, or I'm feeling, I'm wondering, how did you guys get over this? And you'll hear from other people that have gotten over it, who are a little farther down the learning curve than you. And you'll hear from people who are like, you know what, I was kind of afraid too. I did my first webinar, and I'll tell you what, it was a lot easier than you think, and here's what happened. And people will be rooting for you. They'll be like cheerleaders. Okay, we're going to be your cheerleaders, so we're there for you. The next thing that is really, really beneficial, if you're feeling like a little fearful, is to just do a dry run or two. Just do a dry run or two. When you go through the process, it's going to be step by step, week by week. So I start out teaching you how to title and frame your webinar so you get really a lot of attention to it. It would be cool if the title of your webinar itself got people interested to register and attend, and biased them in the direction of buying, so that your attendees were actually pre-sold to buy, just because of the way you marketed your webinar. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? You're going to learn how to tee up your registration page. You're going to get my template that gets 86% opt-in rates. 86% of the visitors on average to the registration page template that you'll get end up registering. That's monster. Typical is like 20 or 30%. So you're going to get like incredibly proven, high-converting templates to work from. And as you go through the course step by step and just implement, you will end up with a webinar funnel by the end of the course. And you could just do a few dry runs and talk through kind of slide by slide. Just go through it with an audience of none originally. And I promise you, you do that a couple times, you get trained, you get supported, and you do a dry run or two, you're going to feel really good. You really will. The other thing that's really important to just kind of get is how important it is to just take the pressure off. Like, this is not the Super Bowl, guys. I mean, I have done webinars, I'm not kidding you, where, not a lot, but here and there, where like things went really, really awry. I did here's a funny story. I did a webinar once, and I had a lot of people on this webinar. I promoted it and had a lot of people on it. And I do the whole webinar, and every professional webinar marketer has like a story like this. I do the whole webinar, and I was expecting it to be about a $6,000 webinar, because I know my metrics. I know for a given number of registrants, roughly how many attendees I'll get. I know, given a certain number of attendees, roughly how many sales I'll get. I know my conversion ratios at every step of the funnel, and you will too. That's part of what I teach you. So you can predict, all right, well, we got 100 people on the webinar tonight. This is probably going to be, X thousands of dollars a webinar. Or, okay, we've got 12 people on the webinar. If it's a small webinar, probably going to get 2 sales tonight, roughly, and that'll be $600. You'll kind of have that level of clarity. So I do the whole webinar, and I'm expecting it to be like, I don't remember exactly, like a $6,000 webinar. The sales come in, and I've made like $2,000. And I'm like, what happened? Wait a minute, what happened? I'm looking, and like my sales conversion ratio is like way lower than normal, way lower than I'm accustomed to. And I realized that the entire time I was doing the presentation, guys, they couldn't see my screen. It was totally black. I'm talking, doing my thing, right? They could not see my screen. Totally black. Totally black. They're sitting there listening, and they're putting in comments like, I can't see your screen. I can't see your screen. The entire time, they couldn't see the screen. And I was like, man, and I was pissed initially. I'll be honest with you. I was like, darn it. I left $4,000 on the table, what the heck? And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, what just happened? I just did a webinar to a completely dark room, and I made $2,000. Okay? I just made $2,000 from a webinar that completely screwed up. Completely screwed up. And it was a real eye-opening moment for me, and it was kind of early when I started doing selling webinars. And it was a good eye-opening moment for me to realize, like, wow, this is really just not that serious. I'm just talking into headphones. That's really all that's happening here. This is not the Super Bowl, right? It's not like, World War III is in the balance here. You're literally just sitting at home talking. Okay, that's it. And so what I realized is, wow, when you you don't have to make it into some sort of big deal. It really isn't. This is not like, we're not playing Russian roulette here. We're just kind of like going through this process that I teach you step by step, and the end result is you get signups, you get sales, but it doesn't have to be this huge big deal. And here's the thing, guys. If things don't play out exactly how you want it, you just do another webinar a week later. Do over. Big whoop. Do over, right? This is not the Academy. This is not the Academy Awards, where you've got to look a certain way and you've got to go up on stage and give your thank you speech. I want to thank the Academy. And I want to thank blah 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 and blah blah blah. And thank you everybody. Like, it's really not that big a deal. Just do another webinar a week later. Are you guys getting that? And you know, I mean, your goals could be like, my target is to simply do the webinar. And just do a few and then be like, all right, my target now is to close more sales. And probably what will happen is you'll start closing sales right away. But you can set small goals. And we'll support you with that. Start small. Most of my students, their first webinar might be to like, they might get like, I mean, they'll get a number of registrants and attendees that's way higher than they would have gotten otherwise. But you don't need to start out with this goal of doing like $10,000 per webinar. I didn't start out that way. Start small. Start where you are. If you have no list, you can start promoting on Facebook for free. We'll talk about that in the course. You don't even need to advertise if you don't want it. You can literally promote for free. You can promote for free on YouTube, for free on Instagram. Get some people on your webinars, and just start small. I started small. I didn't have a big list. I didn't. See, guys, I got good at doing webinars because I had to. I needed a way to make money in my business because I was staring at a business that wasn't, I was on a trajectory where I was going to have trouble paying my bills if I didn't make a change. And I didn't have a big list. I didn't have, you know, zillions of leads coming in when I got started doing this. So I had to figure out, how do I squeeze the most number of registrants from my tiny little list? And how do I get the maximum number of people to attend from those registrants? Because I didn't have a list of a zillion people. I started small, and you can too. So you'll notice the numbering is pretty screwed up here. I had 2 slides that I put together. And guys, there's a lesson there. You don't have to do everything perfectly to get, this is like perfect. This is perfect, actually. It's a perfect teaching moment here. You don't have to do everything perfectly to get results. You do not have to do everything perfectly to get results. Understand that when you get the big things right in your business, the small things do not matter. And you'll absolutely get the big things right with webinar marketing when you make the investment and become a student and you learn webinar marketing from me. You'll get the big things right. You'll be so much better at positioning your webinars and promoting them than other webinar marketers. It's not even funny. I mean, the difference is extreme. It's extreme. A typical webinar marketer, a typical person who does a webinar industry will get like, they may send 100 people to a webinar registration page and get like 30 of them to register for the webinar. They'll get 30% registration. They'll get 30% of those people typically to attend the webinar. That's 9 people on the webinar, and they might close like 7% of them. That's 0.63 sales. The kind of results that I get for that same 100 people to the webinar registration page, I'll get 86% of them to register. Not 30, 86%. And you can too. I'm going to give you that template that I use and walk you through why it works, how to craft it, how to tweak it up into your own words. And instead of getting 30% of my registrants to attend, I'll typically get like 50 or 60% of them to attend. So if you have 86 registrants, that's like 50 people actually attending the webinar. You know, if you have like 60% attendance. Most people will get 9 people attending the webinar. I'm getting 50. They're getting 0.63 sales from that amount of traffic. From those 50 people, I'll close 15 to 25%. That's 10 sales. 10 sales versus 0.63 sales. I'm talking about results that are 15 times better than normal. When you have strategies that can create metrics that are that much stronger, you don't have to do everything right to get results. And I got news for you. You won't. You won't do everything perfectly, and that's fine. The key is you've got such solid training, you've got great templates, you understand how to do this, so even if you don't do everything perfectly, you still get much better results than nearly everybody else. A great strategy as well is to get coaching. And by coaching, I mean working with a mindset coach who can help you. I have gotten coached. The name of my coach is Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs, C-O-M-B-S. You can write that down, Jeffrey Combs. You can Google him. He has coached a lot of folks in the industry who are top producers. He's coached Todd Schlomer, one of the co-founders of MLSP, Cedric Harris, who was one of the heavy hitters in MLSP a few years ago. David Wood, founder of the Empower Network. I mean, he has coached a lot of top producers in this industry, including me. He's very, very, very good. He's a specialist in helping people work through their stuff. I mean, a lot of us walk around and we've got feelings, we've got stuff that we're carrying emotionally that frankly goes back to our childhood. A lot of people deal with issues of not meeting unmet expectations of their parents. Some people deal with fathers that never gave them the kind of approval that they wanted as a kid. Some people feel like they were, have abandonment issues. I mean, and we've all got issues that everyone's got to kind of deal with this stuff in life, or it will keep you back. Understand that most top producers in the industry have worked or are currently working with a mindset coach. I strongly endorse that you consider getting coached by a specialist on mindset development. And finally, step 5 of 9, or 7, work from templates. Work from templates. I'm literally going to hand you, and you don't need to do all of these things. I'm saying here's a number of things that will really help you move forward. You don't need to do all of these or do all of it at the same time. But cherry pick a few of these and think about it. Take a screenshot of this. We'll talk about this in the course. Work from templates. Now, everybody who invests into Webinar Sales Manager, you're literally going to get my proven templates to get people to register on your registration pages. I'm going to give you templates for the emails that I use to promote my webinars, the emails that I use to get people to attend, that I send to my registrants. You're going to get my PowerPoint slides. So you're starting from proven templates. And when you start to layer all these things together, like you get trained properly, you're in a coaching environment where there's a private community group that you can go to and post questions and get feedback and get comments from people. When you just realize that you don't have to make this the Super Bowl, just start where you are. When you're working from my templates, when you practice a couple times, you're gonna be good. You're gonna be solid. You will be solid. You will be solid. What you may not realize is you are literally like 3 weeks of support and coaching away from having this stuck and the stuck feeling or maybe fear be a non-issue. You've got to really get that, guys. That we're starting first week in January. I'm going to send a survey out to get a feel for, do you want to be trained during the day? You want to be trained in the evening? Get a feel for what are the best times of the day and days of the week to do the trainings. You'll have some input on that. So don't get hung up on, what day of the week are the trainings? You'll get replays of all the trainings in case you're not on them live. We'll make those replays available in a timely fashion so you can keep up. But understand, it's not going to take you like 40 years to get over this. By week 3 or so, or week 4, you'll feel really confident. The training I provide is really solid. The support you'll get is really robust. The templates that I'm going to hand you are really good. And so this feeling, like you are going to move past this. Absolutely you will. Because you know what? You ain't the first person that I have coached who's felt somewhat fearful. Okay? You're not alone. This is normal. And I'm an expert on helping you through this process and creating a structured training process so that you're just like, man, I really am getting this. And you can do this. I promise you can do this. I promise you can do this. You can do this. You really can. I believe in you. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. I would not make this. I've been in this community a long time. I've spoken at Live the Dream several times. I've met a lot of MLSP members over the years in person. And I really understand what this environment is like being an MLSP member. And I'm here to tell you, you can absolutely do this. Absolutely you can. And it is an amazing feeling when you start to do webinars. It really is. Your self-concept will really evolve. You will really feel like a marketer. You really will. And it will have such incredible spillover effects. It'd be very cool to feel like a marketer and not just somebody trying to market. It'd be really cool to feel like, wow, I'm getting great results. And to just know you are. Guys, I coach a lot of new marketers, and I got to tell you, the confidence that they develop through my training process is significant. Let's talk about automated webinars. This is one aspect. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want you to understand kind of what's possible when you start to do webinars yourself. Let's talk about one of the real high points of doing webinars. We'll be here about another 40 minutes or so, 45 maybe. Stay with me. Remember what I said. How you regard this, where your attitude is, where your mindset is. You know, take this training seriously. This is indicative of where you're going to be in your business. It's very critical. The next 45 minutes, the extent to which you're focused and stay with us, will have enormous bearing on the results you create in 2015. This might be the most important 45 minutes of your entire 2014. It really might be. And you'll understand why as we go through it. A webinar that's an automated webinar is a webinar event that appears to be live but is in fact a recorded webinar. It's not merely, hey guys, sorry you missed the webinar, here's the replay. That is a replay. A replay has a place in webinar marketing, but that's not what an automated webinar is. An automated webinar is a webinar people think is a live event, but in fact it's a recording. They show up, it's scheduled, you get all the high closing ratios of a live webinar, but in fact it is a recording, so you don't have to be there when it happens. And there's a lot of benefits to this. With automated webinars, you're selling at the same price points that are ideal for webinars. $197 and up, $297 and $497 is really optimal. A lot of people think, well, I should probably start out by selling a $50 offer or a $10 offer or something low ticket because I'll get higher sales ratios. Not necessarily you will. That's not necessarily true. There's not necessarily a correlation between lower price and higher closing ratios. I've tested this. More than that, I know it can sound maybe a little counterintuitive, but here's the thing, guys. It's possible when you do an entire presentation for an hour, they're just jacked up and ready to buy, and you roll out an offer for $10, it can be kind of a letdown for them. They're like, that's it? This thing only costs $10. Like, well, how come I was here for now? Okay? So don't assume that like selling low ticket stuff is like going to be better on webinars. Not necessarily. What I have experienced is that in some cases you will get a slightly higher closing ratio from a lower price, but you end up making so much less per sale that it's usually not worth it. In other words, you might close like 12% or 15% of people into a $300 offer. But if you sell like a $30 offer, you might close like 16% instead of 15%. And so you might get like 1 percentage point higher closing ratio, but you make 1/10 the money per sale. It's that kind of thing. So it's not worth it, right? Would you rather get 15% of the people to pay you $300 or 16% of the people to pay you $30? You would rather get 15% to pay you $300 because if you do the math, you'll make astronomically more money. With an automated webinar, you actually get those commissions on autopilot. And just so you're clear, the process of selling a $10 offer and a $300 offer, and I have sold both on webinars, by the way. You know, I test stuff. Well, everything I teach, I've tested. It's not theoretical. I'm hardcore in my testing. I've tested a million things that don't work as well as the stuff that I use. I'm constantly tinkering. This is why my metrics are so much higher than nearly everybody else's. I test different webinar registration page templates, different tactics to get people to attend. I track my metrics. And when I ask other marketers, what's your registration page opt-in rate? They don't know. What's your average attendance rate? I think it's around blah, blah. No, not when you think it's around. What is it? They don't know. Right? There's no rigor behind what they do, and that's why they don't get the results that I do. Because I track my stuff. And I show you how to do it. It's simple. You get the perfect message every time with an automated webinar, end-to-end. It's not variable. You'll say different words, have different energy levels when you do webinars live. Not so with an automated webinar. Perfect message every time, complete presentation, end-to-end. That's identical every time. You get predictable results. You get passive income, whether or not you have a downline. The webinar runs without you. You can set it to run multiple times a day, so they can schedule, they can get on the 1 o'clock or the 9 o'clock version. You can have it run once a week. This creates time freedom. This is really the crown jewel of home business. A good example is I went to a football game with my girlfriend. University of Texas was playing in a bowl game, a college bowl game. Last December, we drove down to San Antonio and went to a football game. And during the football game, we're at the stadium enjoying the game. I had an automated webinar going. I made thousands of dollars that night on autopilot. On autopilot. Really, really powerful stuff. This is like the crown jewel. I mean, this is really why a lot of people get into home-based business. They want time freedom. They want passive income. When you create a webinar funnel using the strategies that you'll learn in Webinar Sales Magic, you can turn them into an automated webinar very, very simply. That would be very cool, wouldn't it? Here's an example of my results from an automated webinar. I created a 1-hour automated webinar, pitched a $297 product called Tube Traffic Mojo. This is a course on how to generate traffic and leads from YouTube. I've generated over 10,000 leads from YouTube. I have enormous credibility selling this course on a webinar. It's a $297 product, pays a $297 commission minus a small transaction fee. This is an MLSP product. I created this 1-hour automated webinar to sell this course. Again, pays up $297 per sale minus a small transaction fee. I sent traffic from the internet straight to the webinar registration page, not a standard lead capture page. These were cold leads from the internet, not warm leads from my list. It's not like I had this hot list of leads that I sent this. No, this is cold leads from the internet. They didn't know me from a hole in the wall. At the end of the webinar, a button appeared they could click to buy. That's the add to cart button. Of those that buy with this automated webinar, some buy right on the webinar, some buy from watching the replay. I've moved thousands of people through this webinar funnel. This is an old slide. At this time, it was hundreds of registrants. At this point, it's several thousand people. This is statistically significant sample set. Statistically, it's like a tongue twister. It's good data. How's that? 21% of people who register attend the webinar. I get much higher for my live webinars. At the time that I set this up, I was not using all the strategies that I now use to get very high attendance ratios. But even with 21% attendance, you'll see the end results are still very, very strong. 82% of attendees stay till the end and see the offer. That is very, very good. It's very solid. Call that the stick ratio. That's very, very solid. 14% of people who get on the webinar buy. That's 1 out of 7. That is huge. Not even there doing the webinar. 1 out of every 7 people is staring at the webinar, staying on 82% of the time straight through the end, and 14% of the time they're buying. That's big. 21% attendance, 14% of those people buying, do the math, multiply those, that's 3% lead to sale conversion rate for the $297 offer. That is monster. That's monster. Let's put that in context. Understand that 3% conversion into a $297 offer is very unique. Most people sell what I call a low-ticket offer. That's a fancy way of saying something that costs under $100. So they'll sell an MLSP membership. That's a $10 trial. They're not using a webinar. They're sending out emails, and they have a sales video. They're selling an ebook, or they're selling something like an MLSP membership. Most people are getting 2 to 3% conversion from lead to sale into a low-ticket offer. This is what typical MLSP members get when they sell MLSP with email, for example. 2 to 3% of their leads buying. If you were to send a sales video, an email with a link to a sales video to your list to sell a $297 offer, you will typically get 0.5% to 1% of your list to buy that offer. That's it. Because sales videos do not convert as well as webinars. Remember, sales videos will have 90% drop-off. Only 10% of the people are going to see the offer. In contrast, the webinar is going to have 70% to 90% retention on the webinar, straight through the end. So my conversion rate is 3 to 6 times higher than average for a $297 offer. This is a very big deal. And it's because I use a webinar, not a video sales letter. The implications of this to your bottom line are massive. Let's walk through it. Here's the typical results if you lead with a low-ticket offer and you upsell your opportunity to customers. Assume that 3% of your leads buy the low-ticket offer. In fact, it's going to probably be more like 2% to 3%, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Call it 3%. Assume that you earn $75 on every sale of the low-ticket offer. This is typical. When you get an MLSP sign-up, they'll stick around for, you'll make $15 a month. They'll stick around 3 or 4 months. They'll buy some other stuff from MLSP here or there. You'll make $75 on average, give or take. How do I know this? I talked to a lot of MLSP members that track my own results. Whether you sell an ebook, I mean, it's all going to be in this kind of range for a low-ticket offer, maybe even lower. Well, again, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt here. Assume 15% of your low-ticket customers join your opportunity. We teach people to promote their opportunity to their customers, not their leads. The reason why it is much easier to sponsor somebody who is a customer. People that have pulled out a credit card and shown a willingness to buy are much easier to sell other stuff to than a lead. Right? There's a lot of looky-loos among your leads. Assume 15% of your customers join your opportunity. Where do I come up with 15%? This is from asking a lot of my MLSP members and from talking to folks in MLSP. This is typical. Assume your opportunity pays $60 per sign-up on the front end. Most opportunities in network marketing particularly will pay you an upfront bonus on every person you sponsor. That's right when you sponsor them, you make a bonus of between $30 and $80 per sale. Call it $60 per sign-up on average. This is not your residual income. That takes 3 to 7 years to build. We're talking about upfront in your business. I talk to a lot of my customers to understand what are you promoting, what's your opportunity, how much you earn. $60, like how much you earn per sign-up, $60 per sign-up is pretty typical. Now let's assume you generate 200 leads, 3% of them buy the low-ticket offer. This average result, 6 sales, you make $75 per sale from the low-ticket offer. That's $450 of revenue. Of those 6 customers, you sponsor 15% into your opportunity. You get 0.9 signups, $60 of revenue per signup. That's $54. Add it all up, that's $504. Now let's look at the alternative. If you front-ended your marketing with an automated webinar funnel. And again, an automated webinar funnel is very easy to create when you understand how to create a webinar funnel. When you just go through my course with me, you'll get a very high converting webinar funnel as the result of it. And how you automate that is you literally just record the video that is the webinar. You just do the webinar and record it. And you use some simple software to automate it. And I get through into all of this in the course. This is straightforward to do. The guts of it are you have a high converting webinar funnel, and then the step of automating it is like pretty simple. It'll take you like an hour, to set up the automated webinar. That's it. And then you really don't have to touch it ever again. It just runs every day or however frequently you want it to run. Assume you lead your marketing with an automated webinar that sells a $297 course that pays you 100%, like to Traffic Mojo. And then let's assume that you upsell your opportunity to these customers. The only difference, it's the exact same funnel as before, but we stick the automated webinar on the front end of it. Assume that 3% of your leads buy the $297 offer and pays out 100%. Where did I come up with 3%? This is the result I'm getting from that automated webinar funnel. Very, very powerful. Assume that 3% buy your low-ticket offer. In other words, just like before, you still can email your leads and sell them MLSP or an ebook or whatever else you want to sell them that's low ticket and get that 3%. You don't lose that. The automated webinar is additive to your funnel. It doesn't supplant or replace this. Assume you earn $75 per sale on the low ticket offer just like before. Assume 15% of your customers, not your leads, join your opportunity just like before. Same assumption. Assume your opportunity pays $60 per sign up just like before. Everything's identical except we've tacked on this automated webinar funnel on the front end. Watch what happens. Assume you generate 200 leads just like before. Assume that 3% buy, that's 6 sales, the low ticket offer, just like before. Assume you make $75 per sale, just like before, 6 sales, that's $450, just like before. So far, everything's identical. Now here's the kicker. Assume that 3% of your leads buy the low ticket offer, pays out $297 per sale, that's 6 sales. 6 sales, you make $297 per sale, that's $1,782. This is the kicker. This is the distinction here. And it's everything. And I'll show you why it's everything in a moment. Now, check this out. Whereas before you had 6 customers, this is the prior case, sponsored 15%, you had 0.9 signups. Now you have 12 customers because you have customers from both the low ticket offer and the $297 offer. You have double the customers, and therefore, when you sponsor 15%, you have double the signups. 1.8 signups into your opportunity, whereas before it was 0.9 signups. You literally doubled the growth rate of your opportunity on the side. A little side benefit here is you doubled the growth rate of your opportunity on top of making way more money. 1.8 signups, $60 per sale, $108 from your opportunity signups, add it all up, $2,340. The difference here being driven primarily by this, the sale of that $297 offer from the automated webinar. $2,340. You made $504 previously. $2,340, guys. Now check this out. $2,340 in revenue from 200 leads is grossing about $11 per lead. You can generate leads through advertising for $5 a lead on Facebook. Now let's make the math, let's kind of simplify it a little further. I mean, in other words, for every lead that every registrant, when by lead, that's synonymous with webinar registrant. Everybody that you get from Facebook, for example, to register for your webinar will become a lead. Because in the course, I'll teach you how to get every registrant to your webinars added to your autoresponder automatically. So this is how you generate leads from promoting webinars. Even if you have no list, and you don't have to advertise, by the way. You can do what I did. You can promote on YouTube or with a blog or on Instagram. There are lots of ways to promote that don't require advertising. I'm just showing kind of the big thinkers among you. If you want to really scale this up and make a lot of money quickly, you can do that with paid advertising. The way you do that is you create a webinar funnel so you make more money from the webinar in revenue than you spent advertising the webinar. If you spent $5 to generate a registrant and you got $11 back, that means if you spent $50, you'd get $110 back. Now let's call it $100 to keep it simple. So you spend $50 on ads, you get $100 back. You can start small advertising if you wanted to advertise it. And you'll get coaching, by the way, from like the #1 Facebook advertising guy in the industry if you want to do this. Just kind of showing you the big picture here. So you could go spend $50 and get $100 back if your metrics match this. And then you take $100 that you got back and you reinvest that to promote your webinar again. Promote it for the next week. And you get $200 back. And you reinvest that again. You get $400 back. Reinvest that into ads again. You get $800 back. Reinvest that $800 back. You get $1,600 back. See, guys, this is how you grow and scale a business to make thousands of dollars. If you want to scale quickly with paid advertising, with webinars. This is the fastest growth strategy in the industry. It really is. Take that $1,600, promote your webinar with that, with ads, you get $3,200 back. See, it's kind of down to a science. If you just knew every now I stick $5 into this advertising machine, I get $10 back. It's like a magic machine that turns $5 bills into $10 bills. You can scale very quickly if you wanted to do this. And just showing you kind of the big picture here. You don't need to advertise. You can do what I did. You can start out with YouTube or a blog. But it doesn't need to take very long. I mean, you can get to like thousands of dollars a month fairly quickly by starting small. You don't start out by spending $5,000 a month on ads. You start out with like 50 bucks. All right, I got $100 back. Great. Then you spend 100 bucks. You get $200 back. I mean, this is how every leader that you see who is making a lot of money and they're doing it with paid advertising, they all started small, right? This is what I've done. Very powerful. I mean, the typical funnel that doesn't have a webinar is going to net you around $500 up front in this example. The automated webinar funnel, $2,340 up front. The webinar funnel is 5 times as profitable. Plus, it doubles your opportunity signups. 5 times the money, guys. 5 times the money from the same effort. Do you want to make a lot of money or a little money? You want to get a lot of signups or a few signups? 5 times the results from the same effort, guys. 5 times. By now, you see how important it is to start using webinars immediately. Right? You see that. You're really getting the importance of this. There was a lot of work for me to really get to the point where I'm at now. To learn how to present, I had to figure out kind of everything on my own. There isn't really much training out there in webinar marketing. There really isn't. There's a few like YouTube videos here and there, but it's really like basic stuff. You know, how to close on a webinar. I mean, good luck finding any real training. I've looked. There's really nothing out there. 150 slides I had to create. It took me many weeks to create my first presentation because I was doing it from scratch. I didn't have templates, right? I hand you templates. I didn't have templates. Spent weeks doing it. I've moved literally over 15,000 leads through my webinar funnels, testing and tracking stuff that other people aren't even thinking about to figure out what really works really effectively. There's not a lot of innovation going on among webinar marketing. I'm like one of the only people I see who's actually inventing strategies, testing them, and then teaching them. And this is why I get eye-popping results, because I'm doing stuff that other people aren't even thinking about doing. And you'll learn all my best stuff. Leave no stone unturned in my course. I've done live webinars to over 10,000 people collectively. I've tested, perfected my strategies. The stuff that I teach is proven. It's not theory. It's proven. There's a million things I don't teach in the course because they don't work. It's as simple as that. This is all stuff that I, blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm like handing to you on a silver platter. And it's just paint by numbers. It'd be very cool to have a shortcut, wouldn't it? That's what webinar sales magic is. It's really the way to leapfrog, not have to go through all the learning curve yourself, and to do it in a structured environment where it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to not be a pro. Right? I had a business decision to make. Do I want to just teach my webinar stuff to like top producers, or do I want to teach it to new marketers? Because I've got a lot of top producers that I consult, guys. I mean, you may not be aware of this, but like most of the people in MLSP who are top producers, most of the leaders, I'm their coach on webinar marketing. They're using my stuff. A lot of them own my webinar training, literally own it, where I've privately consulted to them. I just did a consulting session with one of the leaders yesterday, for example. And I had to decide, do I want to like just teach leaders? And I realized, really what I'm about is a lot of ways to make money out there. I decided many years ago, I want to make money in ways that help a lot of people. That's really, for me, I just kind of get a rise out of it. I want to make a difference. And so I've structured everything to be very, very step-by-step simple for new marketers. New marketers. Incorporating all the things that I've presented to you earlier about getting support and getting trained, all the shortcuts to overcome your fear and inhibitions. They're all just embedded into the course. Let me show you what's in this course so you really understand that. 6-week course, live webinar trainings with me starts the first week in January, and we'll send out a survey to figure out what are the best days of the week and times that work best for you. We'll make the schedule accordingly, but it's going to start the first week in January, January 5th, first full week. You're going to learn how to earn several $1,000s per webinar, how to sponsor 16 to 28 people per month, and generate dozens of leads every day. This is the most comprehensive training on webinar marketing in the industry. What's cool about it is I basically assume that every student in the course has never done a webinar before in their life and is completely up to their earballs afraid to do this. That's my assumption. That is my assumption. That's where we start. I just assume that everybody is literally shaking about doing this, or they're either there or maybe they're just sort of have some hangups. But I don't assume that you're like some sort of guru or pro or have been doing webinars. If you've been doing webinars, great. I'll show you how to take everything to the next level, or many levels beyond where you're at. But again, my sweet spot are people who've never done webinars before, really have no clue how to do them, and I just show them soup to nuts how to do everything and create a supportive environment where you get so much support that it's like, you'll just feel confident. So let me show you what's in the modules. Let's go through this. Module 1, how to craft an irresistible hook for your webinar that pulls in registrations and sales. I'm going to teach you literally how to position your webinar so it stands out. There's a lot of really boring webinars out there that are like, how to generate leads on Facebook. Snore. I mean, those are like a dime a dozen. I'm going to show you how to position it so it really stands out. How to generate leads on Facebook if you hate Facebook. Or go in the opposite direction. How to generate leads on Facebook if you were addicted to Facebook. I'll show you how to differentiate your webinar. I'll show you how to create bonuses and tee up your offer so that you get a lot of attention when you make it available. You get a lot of attention so that the second people see your webinar, the title of it, they're already interested. I'm going to teach you the ultimate webinar registration page formula, how to get literally 86 out of every 100 people that visit your webinar registration page to actually sign up the form, fill out the form and become a registrant. This is huge. This might be the highest converting webinar registration page template in the world. 30 to 40% is normal. When I talk shop with other marketers and I tell them my metrics, there's like a moment of silence. They're like, dude, can you send me that template? That's what Brian said. That's what Brian said. When I told him, he said, dude, can you send that to us? Okay? This stuff works. I'm going to show you, but you're going to understand the logic as well. You're going to understand how to write your headlines, everything. So powerful. I'm going to show you how to promote your webinars. Here is where we really get into powerful, powerful content. Because most of you do not have a lot of leads or any leads coming in. You don't necessarily have big lists. You're kind of like where I was at. I didn't have a big list. I had a lot of leads coming in. I had to figure out, how do I get eyeballs in front of my webinars when I don't have a big list? I wasn't some sort of guru. I get into all of that. I'm going to show you how to set it up so that everybody who registers for every one of your webinars becomes a lead, gets automatically added to your autoresponder. I'm going to teach you how to write emails that promote your webinars once you have a list. I'm going to hand you my emails that I use that you can use as your own and just tweak them up. You're going to get some training from Brian Finale on how to write emails, some copywriting training, and we'll get to that. There's amazing bonuses with this course. Amazing. They're really good. So if you're sitting there like, I don't have a list, I'm not really sure how to build a list, you don't need a list. Got all sorts of strategies. I'll teach you how to promote your webinars, even if you have no one on your list. I'm going to teach you how to get attendance boosters, how to get huge numbers of registrants to actually attend your webinars. It's not about just getting people, it's not about just doing webinars, it's about getting a lot of registrants and then getting a lot of people to show up on the webinar. The numbers matter. The more butts in seats, if you will, the more butts in seats you have, the more money you'll make. And I've developed some strategies that are very potent to enable you to get 50 or 60% of the registrants to actually attend your webinar, when 30% is considered normal. The typical feedback that I get from new marketers who use my training is, what I'm most proud of, guys, is new students that have never done a webinar before typically will get like 50 or 60% attendance on their webinars or more. There are leaders in this industry, guys, who routinely are getting like 30% attendance. So when I tell you that people usually get like 30%, I'm not kidding you. And remember, all the numbers add up. So when you get, 50 or 60% attendance instead of 30%, and you learn how to close 15 or 20 or 25% instead of like 7%, that all adds up. Remember the difference between getting 10 sales versus 0.63 sales. Remember that example I went through earlier in this training. The numbers really matter, actually, a lot. And it's critical that you have strong metrics if you don't have a big list. Because you're going to need kind of, all the promotion that you can get out of your list and out of your Facebook following and all this. What's really cool, what I'm probably most proud of, literally one of the things I'm most proud of in my entire career, is the feedback I've gotten from customers for my training on webinar marketing, and they've gone through my course. It's just staggering. The kind of feedback is like, I just did my first webinar ever. I got 65% attendance, and 25% of those people bought, and I made, I was selling at $297 price point. It's like that. They're literally getting metrics that match my metrics. See, I thought my customers, they're going to start out getting, decent metrics, but not, where I'm at. No, their first webinar, they're matching my metrics. They were able to replicate my attendance ratios, my closing ratios. I'm really proud. I take a lot of pride in that. It really has proven to be like, wow, they're really able to take my training and my templates and run with this and get like monster results. And they're like floored. Oh, like, I'd never done anything. I never had this experience before in my life. Like, I'd never done a webinar before. I just made $600. You'll get my webinar presentation template that closes like crazy, 25-point webinar blueprint. You'll literally know for every slide. Like, it'd be very cool to know that you're going to get really strong results when you do a webinar. That would go a long way to alleviating any discomfort you have, wouldn't it? To just know, wow, this is going to work. I'm going to get really good results. To be in an environment where you can post questions and get support and feedback from people who are also going through the course, to get input from me. That would be really cool. That would be powerful, wouldn't it? That would make a difference in your life, wouldn't it? You'll get the presentation template that's literally been constructed, has a lot of influence triggers built into it, like social proof, liking, scarcity, authority, reciprocity. You'll understand what all of these things mean and how they all work together to craft an experience that influences your prospects to buy on the webinar. And then you'll get my webinar presentations handed to you, PowerPoint files that you can just tweak up into your own. We will be here about another 15 minutes or so. Stay with us, guys. Module 6, the $10,000 hour, how to scale to 5 figures per webinar and beyond. This is the last module. I'm going to teach you how to take your well-converting webinar funnel that you've been building in the course and how to rapidly scale it up with paid advertising. How to track your metrics so that you can literally quantify for every $5 I spend, I get X amount of dollars back. Where X amount of dollars back is more than you spend on advertising. When you know that, that's like you've given yourself permission to reinvest your money into ads and grow. And this is for big thinkers. I mean, if you want to get to the point where you take a webinar that's converting well, and you may only be getting like, if you have a webinar where you get 20 people on the webinar every week and you're closing like 3 sales, I'll show you how to go from getting 20 people on that webinar to getting 200 people on that webinar. And when you have a webinar where you've got 20 people attending it every week, and you're closing 15%, you're getting 3 sales, and you're grossing $300 per sale, let's say, and you're grossing $900. Well, when you scale that with paid advertising, so you have 200 people on that webinar and not 20, instead of making $900, you're making $9,000. It's not difficult. You just have to know how to do it. It's the same webinar, same webinar presentation. You're going to say the same things on the webinar. You've done the webinar before, but I'm going to show you how to safely and profitably scale if you want to scale. This right here, this is golden, man. What do people invest to learn how to present and do webinars? What do people invest to learn how to present and do webinars? Dave Van Hus, that's Dave, is a trainer. He has a course called 7-Figure Speaking Empire. And the way it works is you pay Dave $15,000 and you fly down to his office and he spends a day with you. If you are a speaker and you're selling from the stage at hotel meetings, what Dave does is, let's say you're grossing like $2,000 every time you sell from the stage. Well, you go down and you have this one-day session with Dave Van Hus, who's a professional trainer on how to sell more as a speaker in a live environment, not webinars, live environment. You pay him $15,000 and he'll help train you and tweak up your presentation with you. And so you can go from getting $2,000 every time you present to getting like $8,000 or $10,000 every time you present. And so people are comfortable paying Dave $15,000 because they recoup their investment after a presentation or two, and now they're making 5 times as much money from every presentation. And I actually know a lot of people that have gotten trained by Dave. Ray Higdon got trained by Dave Van Hus, paid him $15,000. Dagan Smith paid Dave Van Hus $15,000 to learn how to sell from the stage. I know quite a few people that have paid Dave 15 grand to learn this. Why are people giving him 15 grand to learn this? Because it's a money skill. People spend real money to learn how to present and sell because you recoup it after like a presentation or two. Here's a course called Teleseminar Secrets. Teleseminar is a fancy word for conference calls. Conference calls were popular before webinars became popular. That's Alex Mandossian. His course, Teleseminar Secrets, how to sell with conference calls, $2,497. Here's a course from howtowebinar.com, $997 for their course. Their template's $1,497. They have a bundled offer of $1,997 for their course and the templates. And I've looked at this. This is not nearly as comprehensive as what I teach, by the way. Their course is not nearly as comprehensive. Now, clearly people spend between $997 and $15,000 for a presentation course. Throw in the templates, they're spending $1,997 to $15,000 for a presentation course to learn how to sell and present with a presentation. This is just the market rate because it's a money skill. You know, one recoups their investment very quickly and then make tons more profit forever after, every time you present than you otherwise would have. So when I thought about this, again, I was thinking about, well, maybe I make it available to just leaders. $1,997 was the price point I was considering. Got really interested to make it much more broadly available to a larger audience, and I started kicking around this $997 investment point. And I spoke to Brian, and where we came out with this is we said, you know, let's tee this up so it's in the strike zone for everybody to be able to get their hands on in the MLSP community. And we're making it available for an investment of $497. And I really feel like at $497, this is a phenomenal investment. Go to webinarsalesmagic.com and make that investment and join us. Join us. I'm going to hop over to the Webinars on Air interface here. Let's pop that up right now. Talk through a couple of things. I realize my screen is going crazy here. Talk through a few things. Let me show you what you're going to get when you go to the webinarsalesmagic.com page. It's going to look like this. Click this button, add to cart. We also have two payments of $277, two payments of $277, or one payment of $497. When you click the add to cart button, simply fill out the form. It's literally name, email, credit card information. It's very, very straightforward. Very, very straightforward. Let me show you the bonuses. First things first. This 6-week course starts the first week of January. First full week of January, we will communicate the session dates and times after we've surveyed you to figure out what's the best date and time for you. Replays will be available if you miss any of these sessions. Replays will be available if you miss any of the live sessions. All the modules are detailed here. Let me show you the bonuses, because the bonuses are kind of insane. And then we'll tie a bow on this. Fill in the blank webinar slides and registration page templates. I'm going to hand you my webinar presentation slides, the actual PowerPoint slides, so you can tweak them into your own. Remember how I said one of the strategies to get over any hang-ups or fears that you have is to get trained properly, be in a supportive coaching environment where you're learning alongside others, and work from templates. And I'm going to hand you proven templates. Proven to convert, to help alleviate that burden of creating the slides yourself. You literally just take my best stuff and turn it into your own. You get instant webinars with very high closing ratios. In addition, so you're going to get my webinar presentation PowerPoint slides. You're also going to get, and again, whether or not you're using PowerPoint or you're using some other presentation, you can Google how to convert PowerPoint slides into any presentation. If you're using Keynote, how to convert them into Keynote, for example, for a Mac. There's easy to find converters online for free that will convert these PowerPoints into Keynote slides very easily for you. So don't worry about that. You're going to get a registration page walkthrough. You'll get the template so you can emulate that monster 86% opt-in rate on the registration page. One of the highest converting, maybe the highest converting webinar registration page template in the industry. You're going to get my swipe file as a bonus of emails to promote your webinars, to get registrants to attend, to get them to register. These are paint by numbers proven emails. Okay, this alone, I mean, if I just sold like my templates for my presentations and my emails, I would price this for $197 at least. If I sold these on a webinar, $99, $99 easily collectively. These templates alone. I have actually never made my templates available outside of just being a customer in my course. I know if I did, people would snap them up, probably for around $200 or $300 just for the templates. People love my templates, by the way. I get great feedback. They're like, "Holy smokes, this is so much easier. So much easier to just use my stuff." If you want to create your stuff from ground zero, you can. You will know how to do that from the training. But I'm basically allowing you to start with everything like 80 to 90% already done for you. You get private customer-only community group. This will be your lifeline. This will be your place to hang out. This will be your place to throw up questions. We have a lot of excited people throwing up, hey guys, what do you think about this headline? What do you think about this email? What do you think about this title for my webinar? You can throw your stuff up here. People will take a look, give you feedback. I will pop in there. I will be responding to things as well. So powerful. These are running buddies, guys. Run with us. It's okay. You can do this. You're going to get 30 days of free access to Webinars on Air, this webinar platform, so you have a platform to do your own webinars. Ryan or Jim Finale, one of the co-founders of Webinars on Air, will do a bonus training session to walk you how to use Webinars on Air, so you are how to use Webinars on Air, so you are able to use it, able to set up your webinar without a problem. You're going to get training on how to create bonuses and how to create offers. There's sort of an art and science to adding bonuses to what you're selling to increase your closing ratios on your webinars. I'm very good at this. I'm known to create very good bonus packages. And what you want to do is set up your bonuses so that a lot of times you've got people buying because they're so interested in the bonuses. I get feedback like that. I mean, think about that. When you get people emailing you and they're like, dude, those bonuses are amazing. How do I get my hands on your stuff? That is where you want to be. There's an art to that. I'll teach you how to not overdo it. I'll teach you how to not create bonuses that go, overdo it. I'll teach you, because that can impact closing ratios negatively. I'll show you how to stay away from creating bonuses that just come across as kind of thin and flimsy and weak. And you've seen some weak bonuses out there in the industry. You know what I'm talking about. I'll show you how to do this the right way. I teach you about how to influence. And I came up with this. This is kind of an attempt to catch some attention. Really, this is about influence. This is about influence. What are the fundamentals of persuasion and influence? Let me tell you that, guys, people are predictable. People are predictable. I did a training and I sold it on a webinar. I was just going to train you on the fundamentals of persuasion to influence and persuade in your marketing. This is $129 easily. Because what this is going to allow you to do is understand how to use tactics that, frankly, people are already using. CEOs, military generals, your boss, marketers, you're already being influenced. You're already trying to influence others, right? How you dress, how you talk. These are all attempts to influence others, get them to think certain things about you. When you understand how to actually do this the right way, everything that you do will be more effective in your business. It really will. This has a huge bearing on making your webinars really pop. You'll understand how to promote. In bonus training number 4, you are literally going to get a training with the #1 Facebook marketing expert in the world for advertising in our industry, Kurt Malley. Kurt Malley is a friend of mine. He lives here in Austin, Texas. He runs an advertising agency called Black Box Social Media. Black Box Social Media manages several $1 million of Facebook advertising ad spend every year. Black Box Social Media manages the Facebook advertising campaigns for MLSP, for a lot of top producers in the industry, for a lot of business opportunities and companies that, if I mention their names, they are common household names in the industry. This is the guy. This is the guy. Kurt generates thousands of leads per day from Facebook for his customers. Now, Kurt and I did a training together. We did a workshop together about 5 years ago, and we've stayed in touch. We see each other occasionally here in Austin. We had a meeting about a month ago. I trained Kurt. Remember how I said I train a lot of the top people in our industry on webinar marketing? Well, I coach Kurt. I'm Kurt's webinar coach, webinar marketing coach. And he was like, Steve, I'm getting 50% of the people who register for my webinars. 50% of them are attending my webinars, and I'm getting these people straight off of Facebook. These are cold Facebook leads. He's been raving about my stuff because he's using my webinar tactics. And Kurt was kind enough to take time out of a very busy schedule. This guy travels all around the country training on Facebook, guys. He has Facebook advertising reps on his phone. He can literally just call up. You know how hard that is to do? He can literally just call up Facebook and get on the phone with his advertising rep and ask them questions. Facebook's like impossible to get in touch with, by the way. He can do that because he has such a high ad budget. Such a high ad budget. Again, webinarsalesmagic.com is the link to go through, webinarsalesmagic.com. You're going to get a training from Brian Finale on how to write emails and write copy. Copy is a fancy word for words that influence and sell. How to write emails to promote your webinars. How to write very persuasive emails. Brian Finale's companies have done over $25 million in sales. And according to Brian, over $20 million of that have come from webinars. This is a guy whose emails have cumulatively driven over 400,000 webinar registrations. This is a guy who understands how to write persuasive emails. You're going to get coaching from me and from Brian on this. Brian Finale has a course on copywriting. He is a copywriting expert. So these bonuses are very, very valuable. You'll get my templates. You'll get my email templates. You'll get the community group. You'll get access to webinars on air for free for 30 days. You will get a coaching training on how to use webinars on air from one of the founders. You're going to learn how to create offers and bonuses so all your stuff really pops. You're going to learn how to persuade and I call this ethical cult building. It's how to ethically build a big following. People just want to buy your stuff. I mean, I got people who have bought my stuff multiple times, same offer. They buy something of mine on a webinar, and then 6 months later they buy it again. It's like they forgot they bought it. They get closed again on the webinar. That's influence. You're going to learn how to advertise your webinars. So even if you have no list, you're going to get trained by the #1 advertising expert on Facebook in our industry. This is the guy. He's the guy. And even if you're only going to spend like $20 or $30 at first, that's totally fine. You'll learn how to do it the right way to get the most bang for your buck, get you down the learning curve, so you don't waste money advertising trying to figure it out. You're going to learn how to write emails from Brian. You're going to Module 1, how to craft an irresistible hook, how to title your webinar properly to get it to stand out. Module 2, you're going to get the ultimate webinar registration page formula. I'm just recapping here. How to create a webinar registration page so you get very high opt-in rates. You'll get my template for that. Webinar promotion secrets, how to promote your webinars with email, how to promote on Facebook, even if you don't have a list, how to get a lot of registrants. I have a whole training on how to get people to attend. These are trainings that will teach you how to get incredible exposure and get a lot of butts in seats. I'm going to teach you how to close on the webinars with my 25-point webinar presentation blueprint. It's all step-by-step. Step-by-step. Even if you are wondering, you can do this. I promise you can do this. When you get this kind of training, you'll learn how to scale this to earn thousands of dollars from each webinar if you want to really go big. You'll get my templates, tons of bonuses. You'll get templates for your webinar presentations, my emails, the Facebook, the community group, private community group. MLSP's has a special software we're going to use to set this up so that it's not random people on Facebook. It's only customers for the course. You'll get free access to webinars on air, live walkthrough about how to set up your first webinar with webinars on air, how to create offers and bonuses, how to persuade and influence, which will raise the water for all of your marketing for the rest of your life, how to promote webinars with Facebook ads from the #1 Facebook marketing trainer and advertiser in the world in our industry, literally, Kurt Malley. I know that sounds like strong statements, but wait till you see this guy's stuff. I mean, he's amazing. Good guy, really good guy. You'll learn copywriting secrets from Brian Finale. Let me refresh this. Here's some powerful feedback from some customers. Mark Harbert, I applied a lot of the principles that Steve teaches. I've got to tell you, I've seen webinar registrations go up by 40%. I've seen my sales go through the roof. What he teaches is right on the money. Joe Sandy, in week 5, I went ahead and did my first webinar. On my webinar, using every single technique that Steve Jaffe taught us, I was able to have 100% attendance and had a closing ratio of close to 35%. I highly recommend Steve's course. Joe Sandy had never done a webinar before in his life. Lisa Thompson, we heard from Lisa the other night. Lisa, if you're on here, appreciate you. Before I met Steve, I was unable to make any sales using webinars. Since taking Steve's training and applying his techniques, on my first ever sales webinar, I wound up making 4 sales totaling $1,000. But the best part is I can now print money on demand, and people are now seeking me out as the authority and leader in the marketplace. Thanks, Steve. You made a huge difference in my business. April Marie Tucker, webinars have been a real game changer. Steve Jaffe's just the king of webinars. I was able to implement 2 of his many tactics in a short time and had my very first 5-figure launch. Very, very powerful. So just click the Add to Cart button, fill out the form. I know we've been on here for about 2 hours, guys. If we have any questions, let me throw up. If you have questions, I'm going to enable Q&A. I'll be here for about another 5 minutes or so to answer your questions. If you have questions, guys, throw your questions in, and I will respond to questions. If you have any questions, now's the time to throw your questions out there, and I will take a look and go through some questions here. Any questions, guys? Now, understand that this is right for you. You don't need any special. Technical skills, or you don't even need to know what you're going to sell or promote. I'll have training on how to figure that out when I get into how to create the offer. You don't need an assistant. You don't need marketing. So you don't need anything. All you need to do is make a decision. And the time to do that is right now. So click the link, go to Webinar Sales Magic, click the Add to Cart button, join us, make that investment. I'm going to give a moment here if you have questions. Make that investment and run with us. Okay, here's a question. When does the training start, and if needed, and if I need to do so, can I join after it starts and play catch up? I'm now on workers' comp and budget is tight. Let's talk about that. First things first, guys, I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to change up the view here a little bit. I'm going to go back to screen share. Let's go to okay. Now, screen sharing. Bear with me, guys. Let me set this up so. Let's set this up so that we've got a nice clean view for you, and I'll get into questions here. And throw in a question if you have any questions, guys. Okay, so the course is going to start on January 5th. It is going to start on the week of January 5th. It is going to start the week of January 5th. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to send a survey out to all of the course customers to get your feedback on, do you want it on a Monday? Do you want the course sessions on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday? Do you want them in the evening? Do you want them during the day? And we're going to poll everybody, and I'm going to do my best to schedule the sessions to meet the needs of as many people as possible. Now, do not worry if there is a conflict with any of the sessions, because the replays will be available. They'll be available very shortly after the live sessions. The relevance of that, what that means for you, practically speaking, is if you join after it starts, if you come in a week or two after it starts, you're good. You'll be able to go through all the replays. You'll be able to go through all of the replays. And what I found is that the students, there's really very little, there's very little holding you back here. There really isn't, because at the end of the day, you get all the replays handed to you very, very quickly again, only for those in the course. So don't worry about that. So there's a question here. It says, what did you teach by webinar when you first started doing webinars? During the time you were first building the results, which you can now promote as your credibility proof. Okay, great question. The gist of this question is, what did you teach on webinars before you had real results? Well, when what I did was I really just I had spent a little bit of time focusing on generating leads. I didn't even have a lot of leads, but I did a training on what I was doing to generate leads. And then I sold a course that was created by somebody who was way better at generating leads than me at that time. And so I literally structured the training around, guys, here's what I've done to generate, some leads, and then here's a course where you can learn from like a really hardcore expert on how to do this really well. And I was an affiliate, and it was as simple as that. And understand that what I'm going to talk to you about is when I get into the training about how to structure your presentation, I'm going to talk about how you introduce yourself and how you position yourself. See, let me backtrack. A lot of people feel like, well, shoot, I don't have a lot of credibility and results, so what am I going to do to win people over, right? And this is a huge misnomer because, guys, showing your results is only one strategy. There's a lot of other ways to create authority. Most of the authority that you will generate with webinars in the minds of your prospects is going to come from your training. So whether or not you have results is way less significant than you think. And I'm going to I get into this in depth when I get into the webinar presentation blueprints in the course. I'm going to talk to you about how to frame what you've done in your life, whether or not you've gotten results. I'm going to show you if you're a parent, I'm a parent of 2 children, or I'm a stay-at-home mom, or there are things that you've done in your life that are actually relevant. And I get into all this. Don't worry about that. I mean, one of the big misconceptions, and honestly what happens is people kind of use this as an excuse. They look at somebody like me who's been in the industry for years, and they play this comparison game. Trust me when I tell you, everything is geared to assume that you have no results, no background, you've never done this before. I'm going to show you how to set it up. So the way that you market is going to communicate a level of authority just by the way you market, not by inflating or making stuff up. That's not what I'm talking about. But trust me when I tell you, if you title your webinar properly, so it really pops, and you write your emails the way I tell you to write them in the course, you're going to imply such a high level of authority in just how you're marketing. It'll just be obvious from what you're communicating to them in your marketing that you're way down the learning curve than they are, even though you may have literally you're just like summarizing something you learned on a webinar a week or 2 prior. But guys, understand that the second you start to do this, the perceived authority that they'll have is very high. You're going to come across as this. See, you think that you're going to do this, and people are going to think like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. No, it's just the opposite. They're going to, just the very act of doing the webinar, they're going to be like, well, this person probably knows what they're doing. I should probably get on this webinar. So don't worry about that. Do not worry about that. Okay. Okay, it looks like it's the only other question I see. There's a question that I'll PM you privately. It's really kind of a more of a one-on-one type thing. It's not like it's someone's individual situation. It's not really relevant to everybody. Okay, awesome. Thank you. You might even be able to manage it by January. Awesome. So, folks, if you are here, clearly you want this. If you are here, clearly you want this. If you are here. Click the button, go ahead and join us. I wish we were in the same room so I could give you a high five. I wish I could do that physically. I'm really excited to support you and train you. This is going to be very, very supportive. I'm pumped. And I'm pumped particularly for people on this webinar right now. For those of you that got here and were thinking, I'm unsure if this is for me, I'm a little afraid. Power to you. Power to you for getting on here, getting some training. Take the next step, run with us. Those of you that are stepping up, I look forward to training you starting the week of January 5th. Make it a great evening, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and I look forward to training you.